boys, welcome back to the page. Hope you guys are well. And at the time of this recording, or when this will be posted, it will be officially 24 hours since the trade deadline has officially been over. So with that being said, let's just discuss the winners and losers of the NBA trade deadline 2021. To begin, we have some major trades and we have the minor trades. But I want to talk about the big trades and I want to talk about the winners. First team I want to talk about are the Denver Nuggets. They made some big trades. First trade they did of the day was actually acquiring JaVale McGee from the Cavs. And then they got their man Aaron Gordon for RJ Hampton, a projected first round pick, and Gary Harris. The Nuggets needed help. They have some of the worst bench and depth I've ever seen. And after losing Jeremiah Grant and Mason Plumlee last year, they weren't the same. Even though the record looks very good, they needed help, and Aaron Gordon should be that help. They didn't have to give up too much for him. RJ Hampton didn't really get that many minutes. Gary Harris hasn't been that great recently. And a protected first isn't that bad, especially in a win-now situation. So when I look at the Nuggets, they have a really good quadruple. I don't fucking know what you call it. The four players of Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic should be very good. I'm very intrigued to see Aaron Gordon play for a really good team now. He's been on the Magic teams that are just either in the 8th seed or dog shit, so I haven't really seen him play that on a great team. So it'll be really interesting to see how he works with Nikola Jokic and how the ball movement and the spacing on the court goes. But they got their backup center with McGee. They missed out. They're needing a backup center ever since Plumlee left. They got McGee, and they got their guy in Aaron Gordon. I'm really excited to see the Nuggets now, and I'm a huge fan of what they did. Another winner of the trade deadline is the Chicago Bulls. They got Nikolai Vucevic. They also got Troy Brown. They also got Daniel Theis. And they got some other players, but those are the three big names I think of when we discuss their team. Daniel Theis will be a solid backup center. He will provide good minutes. He did all right with Boston. He's nothing insane, nothing great, but he's a good bench provider, and they needed size, and that's exactly what they provide. And a guy like Troy Brown, they needed a backup guard behind Kobe White and Levine. And he provides that. He was very good last year. This year, his role was completely diminished. But they didn't really give up too much for either of them. And then they got Nikolai Vucevic, which is one of my favorite players this season, and a steal. They only gave up 2 first round picks, which isn't that much. They gave up, it was Otto Porter Jr., who is dog shit, and a waste of that max contract, and Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter is a very talented prospect who could be really good. Just injuries have completely derailed his trajectory. But with the Bulls, you have a great duo with Levine and Vucevic. And you also have Kobe White. You have Lauri Markkanen. You have good players like Patrick Williams, Thaddeus Young, Daniel Theis now. They have a good core. They have good depth. They have a great coach. They seem like they have a good general manager. Give them a year or two, they should be really good. I'd say they can compete for the 5th or 6th seed in the East now. But Vucevic to the Bulls was one of the best trades that could have happened today. Another winner of today's trade deadline was the Portland Trail Blazers. Norman Powell has been incredible this season when he starts. He's averaging over 20 points on 50, 40, 90 shooting. He's been exactly what someone they need. Yes, they lost Gary Trent, which sucks, and he was great. But Norman Powell's better than Gary Trent. And just another great scorer off the bench, I would assume. Can help them a lot, especially when they're getting healthy with Jokic coming back. And I'm very excited to see Portland now. I'm really excited to see how that trio works together. It might even be the best backcourt in the NBA, or up there. I mean, Powell, McCollum, and Lillard are a great trio to have. So I really like what they did. And the last team I want to give a shout out to, one team before I mention the last team I want to give a shout out to are the Mavericks in acquiring JJ Redick. They also got Nico Melli, who's decent. nothing too crazy. But JJ Redick, if he can return to form and what his historic stats say of him being a great 3-point shooter, he will be incredibly great for Luka. Very beneficial. It'll be that kind of Steph Curry role of he'll always just be shooting threes and he'll make the open shot, which they have been lacking. So it's very important to have him in the starting lineup. Doesn't really help with their defense, but they did need better 3-point shooting, and that's exactly what JJ Redick brings. And they didn't really give up jack shit for him. James Johnson's not crazy. So I'm very happy with what the Mavericks did. They didn't do much, but they did what they needed to do. And the last team I want to give a shout out to as the winners were the Miami Heat. The Godfather, once again, told the whole league that he's their bitch, and he's one of the best, if not the best, to ever do it in his role. To trade away Kelly Olynyk, Josh Richardson, Avery Bradley, I can't remember, some swap picks, etc., for Jimmy Butler and Victor Oladipo is daylight robbery. My God. The Houston Rockets, I'll get to them in a minute, but the Miami Heat acquiring Oladipo and not having to giving up Duncan Robinson, Hero, or Kendrick Nunn is incredible value. They really, really put themselves in a great situation now. They're deep, they're talented, and they might also acquire LaMarcus Aldridge in the buyout market. So they could definitely be a team that will be the best team to contend with the Nets this year and for further seasons. So if you're a Heat fan just like I am, be excited. What a day it was yesterday at the deadline. Now, let's talk about teams that I don't think did well. First team I want to mention are the Toronto Raptors. They didn't trade away Kyle Lowry. I know that they said they weren't happy with the offers they got. Lakers weren't giving up THT. The Heat weren't giving up Hero. But to get nothing for him, which, yes, they might do a sign and trade like the Jimmy Butler scenario in the offseason, which probably will be the case. So it won't be too bad. But they did get Gary Trent, which is pretty good. I thought they could get a little bit more, or some draft capital. They trade away Matt Thomas, who I like a lot. He seems like a very good scorer, but he wasn't given correct any minutes. They opened up roster spots to acquire a trade for Kyle Lowry, but they didn't do it. So I say they're not really a big loser. I think they could have done more. Should have done maybe. But we'll see what happens in the offseason with Kyle Lowry. This season's been a complete L for them. So for that sake, I'm just going to give them the L. Another team I think should have done something was the Los Angeles Lakers. I know a lot of you fuckers kept saying how the Heat were stupid as shit to not trade away Tyler Hero for either a Kyle Lowry or a James Harden, etc. But I think it's even dumber that the Lakers didn't want to trade away THT for a Kyle Lowry, because that is even worse. At least Tyler Hero's proven it in the NBA. THT has had his moments, but he's not that good. And Dennis Schroeder is asking for 20+ mil in his next contract, which is this offseason, multi-year deal. I generally would take Kyle Lowry at 25 mil for 2 years rather than Schroeder for over 20 mil a year for 4 seasons. I don't know what the Lakers were doing. They really do need to do something in the buyout market. Marc Gasol is just not their big and is not as good as he was back then. They need a big man. They need to get healthy. They should have done something and they didn't. So we'll see if that bites them in the ass in the future. Another team that should have done more was the Boston Celtics. Once again, when it comes to trading stars, Danny Ainge is always just this close to doing it. He's always so close but doesn't have the balls to actually do it. And it's going to bite them in the ass once again. They didn't get Vucevic. They were this close to doing it. Just like they were this close to get Aaron Gordon. Like they were just this close to get any superstar worth talent. And now you're looking at a team that did get Evan Fournier, which is a pretty good signing. But they lost Daniel Tice in their big man situations, either Time Lord Robert Williams or Mo Wagner. Look, I do like Robert Williams, but that's their interior defense, which is kind of dog shit. And when you have teams like Bam that have Bam Adebayo, Joel Embiid, etc., to go up against the Celtics in the playoffs, you have to say, what are they going to do to guard them? And the answer is, who the fuck knows? Maybe Taco Fall, for all I know. So, Celtics, once again, extremely lackluster. Evan Fournier will provide good scoring off the bench, which they haven't had in years. So we'll see from that. But I am very disappointed in Celtics once again. Another team where I look at and I'm like, what are they doing? Are the Los Angeles Clippers. They really traded away 2 second-round picks and Lou Williams for Rajon Rondo. I know a lot of people are saying this is the best trade. Draymond Green said this was the best trade. Stephen A. Smith said this was one of the best trades they could have got. I'm just sitting there like, really? Was it that great? It's Rondo. Yes, playoff Rondo. If playoff Rondo comes back once again, like he did in the finals against the Heat, then yeah, that's one thing. But he really wasn't that in Atlanta. And I'm just like, why would you trade away Lou Williams? I sit there and question the move. I'm still concerned with the Clippers this year. I still don't find them to win a championship. I don't know if Ty Lue's going to be their coach. They could have done more. Should have, probably. But we'll see if playoff Rondo returns. I'm not really sold on what they did. I do want to mention the Magic because the Magic made the most trades yesterday. And they traded away half the roster except for Terrence Ross for some reason. I don't hate what they did. They acquired a lot of assets. They got a lot of picks. They got Wendell Carter. And they have a really young and talented roster. I mean, once they're healthy, you have Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter, Cole Anthony, etc. They had a ceiling with the team they currently had. Like, they've been the 8th seed for 3 years straight. The current group of players just wasn't good enough to push them further ahead. They were in the mediocrity table, and I applaud them for at least knowing it and doing something about it. It'll be really interesting to see how they build. But for this year, it's going to be an L. They literally have Terrence Ross is like their only player available now. But they're a team to look out for in the future. They are young, and I'm excited to see their future. So it's not essentially a loss. They're building for the future, but their season's completely over, which it probably already was after all the injuries. So for the final team I want to talk about, you all know what I'm going to mention, and we're all going to bring it back. It's the Houston Rockets and their complete failure of their trades recently. Look, I'll give it to Roger Stone. The Kevin Porter Jr. trade will probably be a really good trade in the end if he doesn't fuck up like he did in Cleveland. He looked like he would be an absolute steal for a second-round pick that was protected. But to trade away James Harden and all you got back was a Kelly Olynyk, a Avery Bradley, some other scrub players. And yes, they did get 9 first-round picks. These are draft swaps, protected. They're not all just 9 unprotected first-round picks. They did get a lot of picks, but I'll explain in a different video how I find picks in the NBA to be extremely overvalued compared to the NFL. They could have got so much more, as in they could have kept Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert, the 2 young studs who look really good in Cleveland and Indiana right now. They could have had, and with all these picks, it's not like they couldn't just have the first round picks and those 2 young assets. They traded away Karis LeVert for Victor Oladipo, who was going to be a pending free agent, who didn't want to go to Houston, which made no sense to Houston because they weren't going to go anywhere. And they got him for a rental of a month in a month where they went on a 20-game losing streak. To trade away him for a protected first-round pick, so it doesn't mean shit, or a protected first-round swap, so he would have to miss the playoffs for it to even be worth any value, which they're not. To get Kelly Olynyk, who is dog shit, Avery Bradley, which hasn't played maybe 10 games for us this year, for Victor Oladipo is just robbery. They didn't even finesse. They couldn't even get Duncan Robinson, who is also a free agent this offseason. They got fucked so hard, and I look at Roger Stone and I'm like, what are they doing? What the fuck are they doing? I'm fucking dying because of them. Holy shit. Like, the Houston Rockets are just horribly run. They have one of the worst owners in the league. And thus, they might have some studs in KJ Martin, Kevin Porter, and Christian Wood. They really fucked themselves when they had the greatest asset in James Harden. And now they look like they're fucked. I mean, they took the biggest L on the trade deadline. And I just sit there and say, like Kyle Lowry, the Raptors didn't move Kyle Lowry. They could risk him getting nothing, but they might get a sign and trade. Honestly, you could argue it was better to get nothing or not to trade him and lose Oladipo in free agency than what they just did, because it just makes them look even dumber. So I just sit here and say, Houston Rockets fans, I'm sorry for what's happened, and I don't know what to tell you. I am concerned for your future, and I'm concerned with what your draft prospects are going to be. That being said, let me know what you guys thought about the trade deadline. Who did you have? Who was your team? Did they make any moves? And did you think your team won or lost? Do you agree with my opinions or not? With that being said, it will be it for today's video. Hope you guys have had a good one. Please like and subscribe. Put your notifications on. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Basketball Coverage. Check us out on Locker Room app. We'll be going live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern to discuss the trade deadline, to discuss Sweet 16 predictions, and more with you guys. So please support us. Now, with that being said, have a good one and peace.